Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to another episode of News Dose, where I give you all of the latest gaming news. And we have a ton to go over today because, well, the PlayStation 5 event finally happened, and there was a lot of games announced. In fact, 26 games were shown there, some exclusive for the PlayStation 5 and others multi-platform, which will be available on the Xbox Series X as well as the PC, but I'm going to try and go over this the best I possibly can. There is still a lot of information flowing in right now, so this is all very fluid as of this moment. With that said though, PlayStation did reveal the design of the PlayStation 5 and announced two separate next-generation consoles, which was very surprising for a lot of people, and we will talk about what all that means as well. First though, I do want to applaud Sony here because I thought this was a very good conference. The pacing was well done, there was a lot of interesting titles, and well, it just did its job. This conference did ensure that I will be pre-ordering the PlayStation 5 if I'm lucky enough to get it before it sells out. That is a very real possibility, unfortunately, but the exclusives once again look really strong for the PlayStation 5 right out of the gate. We did get Horizon Zero Dawn 2 right at the end of the conference, and that was one of the big new IP for the PlayStation 4 this generation from Guerrilla Games. I actually do think that Horizon Zero Dawn is arguably the best looking game for this generation on the console side of things, and they're really stepping it up with the sequel. We are seeing a lot of new environments, including some underwater stuff, and one thing about Guerrilla Games is that they really know how to put a pretty game together. Dating all the way back to Killzone 2, they just make good looking games. Now the gameplay, I do want to see some improvements there, but once again, Horizon Zero Dawn 2 looks gorgeous, and that's something that you should really be excited for with the PlayStation 5. I think the other really big exclusive announced was the Demon's Souls remake. We never got that Bloodborne announcement, unfortunately, but Demon's Souls is one of my favorite PlayStation 3 games, and I actually tried to import that game from Japan at one point in time, so I'm truly hyped for this game. I'm so glad the rumors were true about the Demon's Souls remake, and something about the original game was technically, it was pretty much the start of the Souls franchise. Most people didn't play it though, and while yes, Dark Souls really grew the franchise later on as it did become multi-platform, Demon's Souls is how it all started. So I think a lot of people missed the original game, and this will be like a brand new title for a lot of people. Though Sony didn't just announce these big AAA blockbuster games here, and they had several family-friendly titles as well. This is a criticism that I have had with the PlayStation 4 this generation. I think Sony really leaned in hard with these cinematic experiences and have kind of forgotten about some of their more family-friendly titles, which does add diversity to their consoles. I mean, sure, Uncharted and Horizon Zero Dawn are great and all, but I don't just like cinematic experiences. I do like other games as well, and luckily Sony announced 3 separate games that I am absolutely stoked for. First up, you have Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, which looks absolutely insane. I think the last Ratchet was in like 2013 Into the Nexus for the PlayStation 3. I mean, technically we got a remake for the first game on the PlayStation 4, but I'm talking about a brand new Ratchet & Clank, and this is exactly what this is. So I'm really glad to see Ratchet come back, and the gameplay looks as fun as it ever did. You can see Sony is really trying to emphasize the rifts, which can teleport you instantaneously, which is pretty impressive. It shows you how fast the load times are with the solid state drive, and this is something that next generation can do. Now, to be fair, Portal does something very similar to this, but there was a lot more going on in Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart than in Portal. Even at the end of the trailer though, you saw a girl that looks very similar to Ratchet. I think they will explore multiple dimensions here, and I expect her to be a playable character as well. I love these games, so again, I'm very excited about this, and I do think that this was one of the highlights of the PlayStation 5 event, and that's kind of hard to point at which highlights are the best because there were so many great games shown at this event. I mean, truly, there was just so many games here. But if you watched my video this weekend, one game that I said Sony should bring back for the PlayStation 5 was Little Big Planet, and they did announce a brand new Little Big Planet game. It's not being developed by Media Molecule, unfortunately, but instead it's being developed by the same studio who made Little Big Planet 3, Sumo Digital. Now that may worry some people because Little Big Planet 3 was not received the same way that the other games have been in the franchise, but I think that they did some stuff with the third game that was really good. They introduced some new characters to Little Big Planet 3, and I think that they got the charm and sense of humor down. They just need to work on some of the more technical aspects of the game. The thing about this game though is that it's actually Sackboy A Big Adventure, a 3D platformer. This is a brilliant move. If you know me, I love 3D platformers, and truthfully, we don't get enough of these games anymore. 2D platformers have just completely taken over the market, but for whatever reason, developers really struggle when it comes to making a good 3D platformer. I'm hoping that with Sony's help, Sumo Digital can pull this off, and I do think that Little Big Planet translates very well into a 3D world. Using items, bounce pads, and just the world itself is so unique, and there's a lot of possibilities here. I'm also interested in knowing if there will be that play, create, share mechanic that Little Big Planet is so well known for. I'm not big into user-created content myself, but I know a lot of people are, so we will see how that one plays out. And speaking of 3D platformers, in my opinion, one of the best 3D platformers I've ever played is Astro for PlayStation VR. I know most of you have probably never played Astro before because you may have not had access to a VR headset, but I'm telling you right now, Astro is an amazing game, so when they announced a new Astro I immediately cheered. I love that game though. As I said at the beginning of this video, information is still very fluid right now. I don't know if this will be available on a VR headset next generation, or if they're just making a standard Astro game. To me, I would be a little bit upset if it's not in VR. Now, I would still be excited for it, but I think one of the reasons Astro was so good is because it was in VR. It added a lot of gameplay to it, so I'm not entirely sure if it could be as good without it. With that said, I still do expect this game to be good nonetheless because Astro is charming, he's cute, and so is the world. I guess I need to hear more about this one, but I really do hope it's in VR. I mean, honestly, I would like to see it in VR as well as just be a standard title. I think that Astro is good enough to be a standard game that anybody could just go out and enjoy, and I think it would reach a lot more customers that way. But I still think it just adds so much more to the experience being in VR, so I hope it's both, if anything. Now, there were still a few more exclusives for the PlayStation 5. I mean, yeah, they announced a lot there. There was a Spider-Man Miles Morales game which will be available on the PlayStation 5 this holiday. I do not know if this game is a full-length game though, or if it's just DLC to the original. Maybe it's just a shorter game for the PlayStation 5 launch. That is what it kind of looked like. I mean, they didn't really give too much detail on this game. There wasn't really any gameplay to talk about, and I don't really think that the next full-length Spider-Man game will be available this year, so I do expect this to be a bit shorter. I mean, I guess we'll have to wait and see on that one though. They also did announce Gran Turismo 7, and if you've been following my channel, we all pretty much knew this was coming. The good news here is that it does have a single-player campaign this time around, which is basically Sony admitting that they made a mistake with Gran Turismo Sport. Now, I'm not saying that GT Sport was bad or anything like that because I'm not saying that, but they are making GT7 a little bit more traditional, which should make fans really happy. The Gran Turismo franchise is huge for the European fanbase as well, so that's great news, and to be honest, it looks stunning. Though I think most racing games do by this point, to be completely honest. I've felt that way for a long time, but GT along with Forza are like the two best racing games on the market, so you got to love seeing this come to the PlayStation 5 so early into the generation. Now, the last two games that we know for a fact are PlayStation 5 exclusives is Godfall and Returnal. Godfall we've known about for a while now, and they did show gameplay of it this time. I mean, it looks like Destiny with swords, and I still think that this game looks kind of meh, but to be fair, I'm not really big into Destiny either. So if you like Destiny, you may end up liking Godfall a lot. I mean, they do look very similar. As for Returnal, it's being developed by House Marquee Games, which develops Stormdivers. This is a much bigger game than what we are used to seeing by them though. It's like a third-person sci-fi horror-esque game, and it looks really interesting. I wasn't blown away by it, but I absolutely need to see more about this game. I think this is one of those games that you may want to keep an eye out for. It may be a sneaky hit game when it releases, so don't forget about Returnal. That should pretty much cover all the exclusives though that we know of as of this moment. I always hate this about these big events, and both Sony and Microsoft does this a lot, but we don't know what platforms each games are for. They do this because they want viewers to think that these games are only available on their platform, but that's just not true. Games like Resident Evil 8, NBA 2K21, and Oddworld Soulstorm are more than likely multi-platform games. And one thing that Sony did in this conference was one of the weirdest worded lines I've seen in a conference in quite some while. So Square Enix did announce a new title developed by Luminous Studios, which is a big deal. They did work on Final Fantasy 15, and their new game is Project Athia. The weird thing though is how they're advertising this game. It's the way it was worded and how they said it was exclusively designed for the PlayStation 5. The wording there is very odd. That does not mean it's exclusive to the PlayStation 5. Now, it could possibly be, but I'm not positive about that just yet. I will update you all when I find out more about Project Athia. It does look really good though, but yeah, I tried to tell you all last week Final Fantasy 16 was not going to be here. That rumor that's been going around was not true, and I do expect a new Final Fantasy, but that particular rumor, it just was not true. As for some of these third-party games though, a few did really stand out. Resident Evil 8 looks absolutely insane, of course. Chris Redfield is back and you're playing in first-person view, and you will be going to some medieval castle-looking place. You even see some werewolf-looking creatures, so all those rumors about Resident Evil 8 did turn out to be true. This is exactly how it was explained, and it looks really good. I liked Resident Evil 7 a lot, and it looks very similar to that. But I think the one game that surprised me the most was Kena Bridge of Spirits. I think it was this game in particular that truly shows the next generational leap in terms of graphics. When you look at it, it's not that it's photorealistic. It's not Horizon Zero Dawn or even Hellblade 2, but it's that Pixar-looking animation. We are taking a huge step forward in animation for games. This looks like it's coming straight out of a movie and it looks adorable, so I think that was the moment that I saw a true leap for next generation. It's kind of funny how that works and that we aren't really talking about realistic graphics here, but it's true. Kena Bridge of Spirits looks absolutely stunning. With all that said though, from a game standpoint, this conference was great. Sure, I'm still trying to get more information on a lot of these games, but you know, there was just a lot of great looking games shown, but they did also show the console itself, which looks very futuristic to say the least. It looks very similar to something like Alienware. I'm not a big fan of the design, but truthfully, the design is not all that important for me. I play games first and foremost. The design is secondary, though this thing does look very exotic, and something I'm noticing is the disc that it sits on. So my friend pointed this out to me, but I don't think that the PlayStation 5 can lay down horizontally without that disc. The way that the design works, it's curved on the side, so you may have to lay it down on this disc. Now, maybe that helps airflow or something like that, but man, this is just a weird design. The surprising thing was not the design, however, because I expected a weird-looking console like this after seeing the controller. The surprising part was the fact that they announced two separate PlayStation 5 consoles. You have the standard console and the digital version, which will of course be cheaper. The digital PlayStation 5 will not have a Blu-ray drive, and probably it will knock down the price by about, I would say, $50. Now, we knew Xbox was planning to do something like this, but I haven't really heard anybody talking about Sony doing something similar. To be fair, Xbox Lockhart is meant to be a more affordable console by, I believe, nerfing the power beyond just the Blu-ray drive, so it will likely be significantly cheaper than the Series X, whereas the digital PlayStation 5, as long as it's just the Blu-ray drive that is different, the price won't be majorly different. We of course did not get the price though, as expected, as Sony and Microsoft are still playing a game of chicken with one another. Who will announce the price first? That is the question. I have for a long time believed that the PlayStation 5 will be $500, and so will the Series X. But with the digital version, you may be able to get it for as low as $450. Worst case scenario, the PlayStation 5 could be $550 and the digital $500. I cannot imagine it being $600, but we'll have to wait and see. I will ask you though, let me know your thoughts on the price, the design of the PlayStation 5, and most importantly, what you thought of this conference. Let me know in the comments below. Anyways though, that's it for this video, but if you liked the video, don't forget to hit the bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Peace out.